Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Witch's Tea, where we'll be talking about elementals, part of the Fae.
Very fun.
I am Violet of Violet the Green Witch and Fox and Bear Healing on Instagram.
And I'm Mallory of Moonlight Divination on all platforms. If you just joined us on The Witch's Tea, we will discuss topics centered around witchcraft, magical practices, and everything beyond the veil.
We bring magic and chaos into your life.
Yes. So elementals. So this is the fourth part of our Faeries series, I guess. So definitely check out the other episodes.
Is there a third part? It's the third one.
I think it's the third one. Okay. You're right. I'm sorry. Okay, so part 3.
It's part 3.
I'm jumping the gun because we did skip. Yes, sure. So we're part 3, and yeah, I mean, it's been interesting kind of sharing our stories about the Fae and these beings, and now we're on to the elementals. And like we said, it's really important to know that, you know, there's no right or wrong way to distinguish these beings. You know, it's just a human way of understanding. it's just our human this is how we understand things, right? So don't feel like you have to know it all or put things into categories. This is just for us to kind of be able to share this with you.
Yeah, sure. And like whatever Fae come to you, like they don't put themselves into a category. So they don't care. It's just more about the relationship you build with them more than anything. But you know, talking about elementals, just for those people who have never heard even that term or anything like that, you know, elementals within the Fae are considered those representing the 4 elements. So why they're called the elementals. So you have the undines, which are water. You have the salamanders, which are fire. And you have the gnomes that are earth, and the sylphs who are air. And the wonderful thing about these beings too is if you are a practicing witch or if you are someone who practices magic, they're great to call on when you're working magic, especially for protection, or if you need a specific element in that magic to really like either like, for example, let's just say you're working on a creativity spell or something that is to ignite something, right? It makes you maybe want to call in the salamanders to help ignite that creativity, you know, to lend their fire to you. So that's like something, you know, to keep in mind. Of a really wonderful way to develop a relationship with them is, you know, to include them in your magical practices. And, you know, always give a little offering or something just in return when you're working with them, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's great to, you know, we talked our last episode, we definitely talked about us seeing them and our experience with them, but it is more about, and you can definitely exist in the space of just seeing them and being enthralled and awed by them, in awe of them. But if you're practicing witch and you're practicing your craft, it's like these are their helpers, right? So they're here to help. I mean, yes, we could just watch their beauty and be in awe, but it's more of like it's also their practical reasons as well. And yeah, I like that you brought that up too, because it's not just about the lore of like seeing them or knowing that they exist.
Yeah, because you can like the building of the relationship can be just a friendship, but it also can be incorporated into your magical practices. They're more than happy to help. And like I said, I work with the Fae too, that are healers in my healing practice. They are more than happy to help, you know, because they want to have that wonderful relationship with us. And they can be really playful. Even the elementals can be playful. I had this one experience once, actually a few times, when I would go to the beach to like by myself. I can see them dancing in the waves, right? And like they would just be like, you down, you know? They like, please don't drown me. You know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, which beings were you seeing, you think?
They were undines for
Mhm.
sure. Like they were like teeny, which is like what I was talking about in our last episode that I saw in the shower, where I see them as these tiny little
Mhm.
sparkly lights,
Mhm.
basically. And they're always in a group. Is
Yeah.
what I see them as, like these tiny little like sparkles,
Mhm.
basically. They almost look like sparkles in the water.
Mhm.
And it's not like, I know people would be like, oh, it's the light refracting in the water. No, no, these are like separate. It's almost
Mhm.
like seeing tiny fireflies dancing
Mhm.
inside the water. So whenever a wave would crest, I would see like
Mhm.
all these little tiny lights in it,
Mhm.
whatever. And I can hear sometimes even giggling.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm just as you brought it up, I just realized I had a story. I was just thinking, like, do I have a story about this? And I was like, yeah, I do. Um, and I mean, you'll hear this and make sense, but I was in Mexico doing a retreat last year, and it was during the new moon in Pisces. I remember we did a ritual on the beach, and some of the people from the retreat, we like did a little ritual, and we started during before the sunset, and it went up obviously it got dark, and it was there's no there's no like street lights out there, so it was completely black, and we were on the beach, and we kind of like went into the water to like put an offering, and surrounded. I mean, of course, they're like little jellyfish, the bioluminescence,
Mhm.
but it was just that time of year. It just didn't make sense. We were surrounded and it was so beautiful. And we were like, it was like hitting our like by our waist. And it was just surrounded by these sparkly, and I kind of it felt like they were like around us. And then in this, it was also reflecting was in the stars because the stars were so bright because it was a new moon. So there was no moon. So it was just like the most magical experience because we just saw it was like above us. It was also on our level, but it was also in the water.
That's amazing.
So it was just like we were just really, and of course, being in Pisces, we were connecting with that water energy. So I was thinking, I was like, yeah, I wonder if like those were on Valentine's.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I
Mhm.
mean, like, and I know this is like a weird thing, but undines and all the elementals, a version of them
Mhm.
even live within ourselves because we are made up of the four elements as well. And that's a little more complicated, but sometimes if one of your elements is off too, you can work with that element outside of your body
Mhm.
to then sort of balance. It's kind of like when people talk about like their yin and yang being off too.
Mhm.
You can go further than that and talk and explore the four elements within your own body, being possibly off as well, and you can call in like the undines or the salamanders or the gnomes or whatever, although the gnomes can be a little bit grouchy sometimes.
Earth energy. Of course,
Yeah.
they're grouchy. Yeah. Why do you wake me up? Oh, okay. Put my pants on. Let me go out there. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. Did I bother you? It's like, yeah, yeah, they can be. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just waking like a Taurus up or something. Or, yeah, you don't want to wake a Taurus up before they're ready to wake
Yeah,
up.
that would be me. I'm a Taurus rising, so
Yeah.
I do not like being woken up at
Yeah.
all.
Oh, yeah,
At all.
for sure.
Yeah. I get really grouchy, super grouchy. But yeah, but the
Mhm.
elementals, like I think for the most part, we see them or experience them in nature more than
Mhm.
anything. But like I said, you do have them in your home, as those elements do exist in your home as well, and they exist within your body. But I think the most common interaction most people probably
Mhm.
experience are in nature,
For sure.
and a lot of times they actually will be called nature spirits as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like, and I'm saying in a previous episode, even with the house spirits, I experienced them outside, which is, yeah, you think house spirits, but they're always like these beings that are like around the space or coming in and
Right.
coming out. Um, and yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what elementals, earth, air, fire, water, do you feel like you've been working with a lot lately? And does that correspond to what you think you need in your life now?
I generally work with the
Mhm.
undines
Mhm.
and the salamanders mostly,
Mhm.
water and fire mostly. But I have recently, I think one of my last spells that I worked, I did work with the sylphs because I was working with the
Mhm.
air energy.
Mhm.
Um, so it depends. It's funny because as much as I have like a lot of earth placements in my,
Mhm.
my chart and everything, I definitely don't work as much with the earth elementals. I work
Mhm.
with the earth element, but the elementals not as much. And maybe it is because
Mhm.
of the grouchy kind of thing behind it sometimes
Mhm.
that, is a little harder to work with, I find. But I definitely work with fire elementals a lot, especially when it comes to creativity.
Mhm.
And just I think because I'm a Pisces too, I just
Mhm.
gravitate to the undines.
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
work a lot with water, and just water for me is like home a
Mhm.
lot. So
Mhm.
I definitely have had a lot of encounters, which is the ones that I've actually seen are the undines.
Mhm.
And sometimes I've seen some of the sylphs too outside, and I've actually had them. When you see the clouds floating in the
Mhm.
sky and stuff, I'll ask the sylphs to move
Mhm.
something like in
Mhm.
the air, or even a tree,
Mhm.
like a tree or something. I'll ask them to show their presence. So I'll say, "Can you please move that tree?" Or "Can you please move that cloud and turn it into this?" And then they'll respond.
Can you
So,
sorry.
so again,
Yeah.
no, again.
Can you describe like for yourself, like what is a self or what does it look like? Yeah.
A sylph, I mean, like a sylph is just the element of air,
Mhm.
and sylphs can appear as sort of like a wispy kind of
Mhm.
fairy kind of being, not necessarily like the winged fairy creature that, is what we kind of all imagine a fairy to be,
Mhm.
but something more, less like tangibly, like as like we would give a regular form to something. I think
Mhm.
it's less formless.
Mhm.
I would almost consider, like kind of like how caricature ghost would be like.
Mhm.
It's sort of like that. That's how I see them sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll see a face in them, and it'll a lot of times look very feminine to me, the faces, or
Mhm.
kind of androgynous,
Mhm.
what I'll see, but it'll always be sort of like almost like a wisp of like smoke kind of thing. That's what I usually will see them as.
It's interesting 'cause, like I'm mentioning, like you brought that up with the cells because I I love the snow. I'm one of those really weird people who actually likes the cold. I love the cold. I love to be in weather where it snows. And I mean, there was times when I would go upstate and it's just snow, lots of snow, and I love it. Like for me, when I consider it scrying, and I was like. The fresh snow, and there was a lot of wind, and you see it kind of picks up and it makes those kind of wispy, and you see the bits of snow in the air. And I like to like read it or kind of like what am I actually looking at? And I remember seeing something like a face in one of them and not realizing, oh, this could be like a sylph.
Right.
And I'm just like, I would just sit there and like stare at it in awe. And like maybe I was like renting a house or something up there. And I would just like I think I found myself sitting up for almost like an hour just watching the formations that were coming out of it. And I was like, okay, like I'm reading it, I'm just seeing it was almost like a I don't know, I feel like a Pixar movie or something. It was just so like beautiful and like musical and like aesthetic. It kind of felt really really beautiful. And yeah, yeah. It's like I was thinking about it too when I asked you a question. I was like, I don't really work with the air element, but I was like, oh no, I do.
That's so
I,
funny because you're an Aquarius too.
yeah. It's like the thing is I forget that a lot because the other parts of my charts are so chart is so dominant. I forget I'm Aquarius, but yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an air element. Like, of course, I'm gonna work with them, and they're just around me. But like you said, it's like what we're lacking in our charts, or what lacking in our what we need in our lives at that time. So maybe you don't really need the earth energy because you already have so much of it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think that it's so funny
Mm-hmm.
because I think you were just in my
Mm-hmm.
brain because that's what
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking. It's
Yeah.
possible that because I have a lot of heavy earth
Mm-hmm.
placements that like
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily gravitate so much to
Mm-hmm.
working with the earth elementals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that I don't work with the earth elements, like within
Yeah.
my magic, I do. And I work with the earth's power all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's usually what I gravitate to normally. I
Yeah.
use earth magic. But when it comes specifically to calling out elementals,
Mm-hmm.
they're not the one of the first ones that I go to. I think it's also depends on the magic I'm working on, but yeah, I gravitate a lot to the undines because I do like I don't know, I just have like this real
Mm-hmm.
attachment to water too.
Yeah.
So
for sure. And I mean, would you classify would mermaids and sirens be in that
I think so. I mean, like,
category?
it's weird because, like, you know, you can categorize them under anything, I guess, but
Hmm.
people tend to not think of, I guess, the mermaids and stuff as elementals because they are have more cognitive abilities, and I think a
Hmm.
lot of times elementals are considered less having less cognitive abilities. I'm not 100%
Hmm.
uh, sure on that, or I believe that I should say, because I definitely like have had communications with these
Hmm.
beings, so they're able to communicate, right? So
Hmm.
they that means that they have
Hmm.
higher cognitive abilities, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would definitely think that the mermaids would be categorized
Hmm.
as a
Hmm.
undine, and the sirens. And then
Yeah.
we were talking about, what were else were we talking about?
Um, the Nephilim.
Nephilim, maybe,
Yeah, and we're talking about Sasquatch and all those.
and
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
dragons,
the
right?
dragons
Dragons,
too. We
yeah.
were trying to figure out, like, there's a fine line between I guess with myth and folklore, they're all interspersed and mixed together. But it's interesting, like trying to even decipher that was interesting because we're just like, well, where do the the Nephilim fit in, which are just giants and giant beings, like I guess descendant of fallen angels, I would say.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like where do they fit in? And like yeah, where do mermaids fit in? Maybe they fit in a few categories, right? Like because of the cognitive
Yeah.
abilities. And that can be interesting too, because just like humans, like yeah, we have some humans who some are, you know, okay, intelligent wise, and others have a bit more, right? We have different varieties, so maybe they have different varieties too.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So,
I was
yeah.
just, I forgot. I was just thinking about something that I was just gonna say, and I can't think of it now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was related to what you were just talking about. But like, oh, with the dragons too,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a little hard to categorize them under
Mm-hmm.
any of the specific elements
Mm-hmm.
because dragons, not all are fire
No.
dragons, and which we were just talking about.
And you mentioned the dragon that you work with.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
one of my guides
Mm-hmm.
is a dragon, and she's quite large. She's
Mm-hmm.
probably as big as the earth, but she can make herself tiny too.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a violet flame dragon. So her flame is not a burning flame. It's a protective flame instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a healing flame. So even
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, when I would do Reiki sessions for the collective,
Mm-hmm.
I would have her help me
Mm-hmm.
and spreading the violet flame as a healing flame
Mm-hmm.
for like the area where I lived and stuff. So
That's beautiful.
yeah.
I love that. Again, we're talking about, remember, these beings being as helpers, right? So that's a great example of that. Yeah, like we can also, you could just maybe sit there and watch her in her awe and beauty, but it's also like, hey, like, you mind, since you're here, like, you mind just like helping me out with this, which is
Yeah.
also kind of like,
And
yeah.
they're happy to have the relationships with
Mm-hmm.
us. It's just that, again, like we talked about before, is that unfortunately the Fae have had such a terrible relationship with
Mm-hmm.
humans for so long, and we've been destroying their habitats for so long too, that it's kind of like, animals that are going extinct or endangered because we're destroying their habitats. It's a lot like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're getting pushed further and further away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like when somebody invades your home, you're not going to be exactly happy and receptive.
Mm-hmm.
But so if you create an environment for them, and if you establish a relationship of respect for them, which we talked about already, chances are that they'll really want to help you and really want
Mm-hmm.
to have that relationship with you, because they are wonderful beings, and they're happy to help you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. I think it's definitely, hopefully, listening to this episode, you can definitely, yeah, reconsider your relationship with, even, I mean, beings that are not human. So I feel like even, I mean, even spirits as well. We're talking about, going all the way back to the mediumship episodes where I feel like developing a healthy relationship, or this context of like, what's happening rather than like making it sensational or it has to be, I mean, yes, you might get scared. we're,
Yeah.
we're humans. Like that's just what it is. I mean, they would probably scare them too. Right. So I feel like it's just like, I don't know, just seeing them, let's say seeing eye to eye. It was interesting actually. So let's talk about, I wanted to mention this with you. Seeing eye to eye. I remember I did a post on TikTok And I was talking about that, like, it's totally what goddesses, but anything to do with this. But I remember I said I worked with certain goddesses, and I had a couple of comments of people like, oh, I don't work with them. I work almost like they were saying, like, kind of like, oh, they work for them. Like, how can you say you work with Oshun? How do you say you work with Hecate? And I was like, interesting. Okay, so you're semantics, right? First of all. And then secondly, I just feel like, which is fine, maybe for these practitioners, their hierarchy, there's some sort of like hierarchy, which I get it. But I wonder if that same or similar hierarchy kind of exists with these beings. I feel like people kind of classify them, not to say lesser than, but as maybe not as intimidating as say working with a deity or a goddess, which is completely, of course, different.
I think, I mean, I think you're right. And the thing is, like, let's talk about like here, like as far as like the different planes are, you know, when we're talking about the different planes where the gods and goddesses are way up there, right?
Yeah,
too.
for sure. Yeah.
But the fairies are actually not much further down from them. Actually, they actually exist in the same plane as the angels. So like, and they actually work with the angels as well.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people don't even realize that some of the archangels actually work with very specific spirits, especially with nature spirits, especially to help them, you know, organize, like taking care of certain parts of the world and stuff like that. So they are very much involved together. So they are of a much they are high vibrational beings, you know. But like the idea of working with versus working for, I think, you know, and that I feel like that's like something that I'm going to be kind of covering too in that my gods and goddesses, working with goddesses class. You know, devotional work versus magical work. I think, and that's the difference too. When you're being, you're devotional, right? It's more like it's for them versus magic, where you might be working for yourself with them, you know? And the two can coincide together, absolutely, because I do that all the time. I create a devotional space for them, but I also, but by creating devotional space, it's that equal exchange now that like, now you'll help me with my magic, right? Kind of thing. And the thing is, I definitely feel, at least specifically, and I know we're going on a tangent here, but working with the goddesses and gods, and even with the fae, it's the same thing. If you start acting like you're somehow lesser than, or you are like you have to be like groveling in front of them and stuff like that, they don't respect you.
Exactly. That's not devotional work.
Exactly. So I feel like you definitely, everything you do is you do it with respect with all these beings, but you have to do it with confidence and with like a commanding kind of voice when you're doing it, not disrespectful in any way, you know, and not telling somebody, you know, that they have to do something for you. You can ask respectfully. But in a commanding voice, you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Do this now or do that.
But I know what you're talking about. There where people definitely feel like where you should. I think that's a very like monotheistic kind of thinking too. Like, you know, where a lot of the religions like Christianity, you know, Islam, Judaic, all those have this sort of relationship with their God, right? Where it's like, you know, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir kind of situation versus like, hey, friends, can you help me out and I'll help you out kind of thing. Exactly. And that's the relationship I like. Hey, friends.
Yes.
And that's how, you know, like a respectful relationship. And that's how I treat the fairies. I treat them like the respect I would give to any good friend, you know, to like one of my closest friends.
I love that explanation, especially like bringing up, you said devotional work and magic work. And I feel, I mean, that was interesting because I got that comment and it was like, it was a comment and it was a small one in a sea of positive comments. So I was trying not to like let it get to me, but it was just interesting. And I've seen this with clients as well, where I feel like people, which is natural, there's no definitely an attack or anybody, but you know, we do this, I do this too. We bring in a lot of our Christian and Catholic and other like monotheistic religion into spirituality, into witchcraft, and it doesn't really work, it doesn't coincide. And like you said, it's having that respect. And I feel like when we're working with beings and goddesses, gods, deities, beings of light, the fae, what they're like, not all of them, but they do want us to be seen. They want us to kind of recognize our gifts and our talents and to help us with that, to help us exist and coexist in this earth. And like you said, what is the point of having us bow down to them
Right.
in this? Like, or how are we really elevating ourselves if that's the point? Like, I don't know, for me, and I just maybe that's what it was, like a trigger for me. And it wasn't a trigger like a negative. I was just it made me think. And just the fact that we're talking about this with the Fae, and I feel I don't know, maybe they are, especially fairies, I won't say discounted, but almost because they come across as like childlike.
Mhm.
And maybe that's, I wouldn't say they're dismissed, but then I just feel like people don't know how to work with them because they're kind of coming, the approach or the outside appearance of whatever. Maybe the stuff that's focused on folklore is like these childlike beings. Like,
Yeah.
what can they do for me? You know, like, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
Like, and the thing is, like, not all of them are childlike, and that's the thing, right? There's
Exactly.
like so many different kind of fae.
Mhm.
There's it's a huge group.
Mhm.
And some of them, yes, are childlike for sure, 100%. They're silly
Yeah, nothing
and
wrong with
they're
that.
mischievous
Yeah,
and whatever. And
yeah,
but you know what? They'll help you too.
yeah.
And just because they have a childlike nature doesn't mean that they aren't capable of like high cognitive abilities
Mhm,
and helping you with tasks that you might need, or magic, or healing, or whatever it is that you want to work with them.
mhm,
Being childlike is not a bad thing. And I
mhm.
think that's kind of just a societal thing too, where
Yeah.
we have this thing like, once you pass a certain age, you can't do certain things and you
Mhm,
can't act a certain way. And, they don't have the same rules as us. And that's, I
mhm,
think, part of the problem that a lot of people have with
mhm.
working with the fairies is that they are putting human rules on them, and
Yeah, I agree.
they don't have human rules because they're not human. you
Exactly,
know?
exactly. And it's like it's our own kind of, like you said, connections like with the gnomes and elves. And I mean, yeah, I live in this world too. So of course when I think of elves, I think of Christmas, right? I think of these
Okay.
little beings that are helping Santa. And it's like, yeah, no, I know they're more than that, but it's definitely like trying to break free of that mindset of like seeing them as like, just as we want to be seen as multidimensional beings, like seeing them as also multidimensional and helpful. And I don't know, I just something I was just thinking about in regards to um like maybe why they are. Yeah, I mean, I see, going on YouTube or something or TikTok, you see a lot of goddesses because everybody wants to be a goddess, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a god and work with and then, and especially when you see fairy work, it's normally, obviously it's an aesthetic. It's a very, um, I don't know, it's just interesting. And it's like, they're classified differently. And I just found that very, I mean, of course they wouldn't be the same, but just me rambling about this. I just found it very interesting.
Aw. I think you're right. It's
Mhm.
like people feel like the fairies are just children's stories on top of
Mm,
it too.
yeah.
And again, it's that sort of like where gods and goddesses are thought of like these like amazing, super powerful beings that like can
Yeah.
make and break things, whatever. And then fairies are, put in this category. Oh, these cute little things, they hop around the flowers and whatever.
Mhm.
But that's not the case, actually. And there's some very, very
Mhm.
powerful fairies, in
Yeah.
fact,
Yes.
that are, equal to gods and goddesses as well.
Mhm.
Especially some of the uh like the fairy queens and fairy kings, they are incredibly powerful beings that are not to be messed with and deserve high respect, because
Mhm.
you do not want to mess with them for sure, unless it's in a very respectful manner.
Yeah.
Like I think I mentioned before, like I have a one of my spirit guides is a fairy, and she's one of the
Mhm.
queens, and she is spectacular. And I don't ask much of her except for guidance, because I, treat her just like I would any other guide,
Mhm.
with the same respect and everything. And she helps me actually connect with a lot of the other fairies,
Mhm.
which is another wonderful thing. So, like, if you do get the chance to like establish a relationship with one of
Mhm.
your spirit guides, even if they're not fairy too,
Mhm.
can help you develop the relationships with the fairies as well, if that's
Yeah.
something you're interested in.
For sure. Yeah. I think, we always, I mean, again, go to about categorizing, right? I mean, this is a human thing. Even we do this, we even notice it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like our spirit guides, which are connected to us just by our nature and connecting us with our purpose, and just they have many obviously reasons of being around us. But yeah, I mean, asking your guides ancestors or, beings around you, which are who are around you for you, for your energy and for yourself. It's like, yeah, like, hey, like introduce me to like I want to work with maybe, and then you might find this is the whole thing too, like, you know, I don't know. I mean, we're talking about when we need them, and maybe we might want really badly to work with a certain being, and it's not that they don't want to work with us. Maybe it's like maybe what we need to learn. Maybe some people are not ready, or maybe it's not, it's not the right time, or maybe they're not. They're like, hey, it's not me, but for
Yeah,
this person.
exactly.
So I feel like too, maybe, yeah, and sometimes you can get discouraged with that because it's like, well, I want to work with you, and it's like, no, like that's not really. So maybe being open as well is important to not try to. You'll say like, oh, I only want to work with the cute fairies that jump on flowers, and they're like, we have nothing for you, but the gnomes do. Right?
Exactly.
They might not be as like fanciful or whatever, but I just feel like, yeah, just being open to who is coming forth.
Yeah. And if you really are, like I said, if you
Mhm.
do have a magical practice of some sort, if you're a witch or have any sort of magical practice, the elementals are actually cut really wonderful allies for working magic. Because when you're working with magic, you might be incorporating herbs or some other form of representation of an element, right? But then you can actually call in an actual elemental, which is a being of that element, right? To even protect you during the you know the spell work, or you can call them in to actually maybe even imbue the charm that you're working with their energies and stuff like that. So these are things that you can really work with the elementals with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And just yeah, I'm just referring back to the devotional magic. I really like that separation because yeah, I think it's important. Just trying to think of who I've been working with lately. Um yeah, actually I think it's definitely the water spirits, especially when I travel to Mexico for work, and yeah, go to Oaxaca, and it's the water there. I mean, it's completely unswimmable. Like the place that I go to, like, you can't swim, and they're just like, we put red flags. If you swim, it's your fault. It's like,
Do they have like red algae or something?
no, it's just the waves are insane.
Oh, okay.
It's like, and there's not even. I mean, there are rocks there, but literally the waves just take you and swallow you.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. But like I go there not to swim. I just go there to like be in the area, and like actually you can hear the waves crashing. It's
so
insane,
nice.
and it reflects because the rocks are there. So it like undulates through, like you can hear it through like down the forest.
Wow.
But it's when I go there, I'm always like working like with the Undine showing up, and then Undine, sorry, and yeah, I've been sitting with the water, and I feel like it's because I'm definitely self-aware, right? It's about me connecting with my emotions. And I've been definitely putting down ice. I put that a lot as like my tendency. And I feel like, yeah, it was a lot of them. I remember I got this message and they were just, and I can't swim. This is also this other thing. I have this fear of water, which does go back into my past lives of being a mermaid. And I feel like, how can I drown as a mermaid? I think there's some shady stuff going on, but I have to like research it.
Wait a second. You were a mermaid, so you were an elemental.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I feel like I think about past lives of fairies, and I remember like, you and Victoria, like us talking about it, and Victoria saw it, and I was like, I don't know, I think I see myself with wings, but I'm definitely, I know I've had so many past lives of being a mermaid, and every time I go to Mexico, I'm like lounging on the rock.
I can see that.
I'm like, I feel like this is what I used to do. I used to just sit on the rock and just watch, like play with the crabs. And that's what I do when I'm there. Like there were these little crabs. And it was so funny because people like, I was a bunch of us, and we had these little black crabs in the like little enclave part. Little that was called like, I don't know, it's like a little grove. And we would go there and we would climb down the mountain. We had to get there. And these little black crabs were there, and they were like only collecting around me. And they were like, what do you do? What do you do? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. And they're just like around me, these little snails. And I would just like, and I was like, I found like a bunch of hagstones, which I get everywhere I go. I always found. So hagstones are just stones that are with holes in them that would naturally formed holes to the ocean. And I was finding a bunch. And it was just like, it's always like a magical experience to me. I just feel like every time I'm doing these things, I'm like, I've done this. I feel like I've done this. Like I've been But I'm also, it's like this weird also connection with not being able to swim. Like I've taken so many classes. I've worked one to one with instructors. And I think the last one I had, he was just like, you can't just give up. He was like, he was like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, I don't know. And I was like, I know it's like a past life thing. I know it's something
must have happened.
something must have happened. Like maybe I was like drowned or killed or something.
Or maybe you were one of those mermaids that came to shore and like maybe had a life with a human or something like that. So you lost your mermaidness. It's
weird. And I also have a severe allergy to fish or seafood. Anything that comes from the ocean. I can't eat fish. I literally cannot eat fish. If I smell it, I start to break out.
That's crazy.
So I was like,
it's not just shellfish, but fish.
Everything. Also. Yeah, even seaweed.
Anything that comes from the ocean.
Yes. Wow. If it's in my food or my makeup products, which a lot of makeup products, especially the vegan ones, like they tend to put a lot of like seaweed and all this, and I have to read it like no, you have to tell me the ingredients because literally I think I had like a lotion that had seaweed extract or something, and I broke into hives.
You have to be careful with Japanese food.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't even go to Japanese restaurants. I literally just give me rice, white rice, and the driest chicken teriyaki that you have. That's all I can eat because even the sauces might have stuff in it. I'm like, don't give me anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've had
so interesting.
Oh my gosh, so many past lives. And I remember as a child literally having dreams. And it was always so fun. I used to hate to wake up. And I had dreams of me just being under the ocean, swimming, and so fun. And it made me sad because like I would try to go and then try to swim, and then I can't swim. And I'm like, I've had dreams of me. I'm swimming. Why can't I swim? And I just thought like I used to force it. I was like, I gotta do this. I can't even float. If I'm in the water, I panic. Like I completely panic and I lose it. Like if it gets like too close to like I have to be like above my neck. But I love being near the water.
Meanwhile, I'm like, you can come up and swim in our house. Like, no,
I can. I walk. I wade in the water. Okay. I love if I'm into wading. I can wade all day.
Okay,
I can wade. I can literally be. I remember we had a pool, and the pool was like 5 feet tall or something. It was like a small pool, and I would just stand there and sit there. That was my whole day. And my mother was like, "Aren't you pruning?" And I was like, "Yes." Bring me some books, please. I need some more material around me. I'll just sit there all day, but I can't swim in it.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah, I wonder sometimes though, like, so I do remember some of my past lives, and I think I brought this one up in one of maybe the first episode on nature spirits, that like I was a fairy in the water that took care of animals, and sometimes I think like maybe that would be considered an undying too, because it's a water fairy specifically. Like I was always in the water. I only lived in the water. I was taking care of the animals. And I actually was what I like to call a sunshine ray fairy, but I'm sure it's a fire. It's like some sort of probably like salamander type fairy that lives in the heat or the light of the sun. So I was one of those. And I actually remember that lifetime when I was on the beach once laying in the sun, that I was just like, sun feels good. The last time I was able to actually sit in the sun, because all of a sudden I can't be in the sun anymore. I practically burn up like a vampire. So I had a vision of my life of just sort of like dancing in the rays of the sun all the time. Yeah.
And I know you definitely have I remember we went out to the park and let's go to where the sun is. Let's go where the light is.
Yeah.
And I remember you always we're like following the sun. Yeah. Like you're very much like you want to be in the sun.
Yeah, not anymore. Unfortunately, my skin does not allow me to do that anymore. But yeah, it's really a bummer because I really miss the sun in that way. I love the sun. But yeah. And it's funny you talk about the mermaid lives too. I was like some creature on another planet, like a water being. It was a mermaid-ish kind of being, or like it was almost like a manatee mermaid being kind of thing, that I lived on a water planet.
That's what I imagine they look like. I don't think mermaids look like Ariel. I always imagine them looking. I think the image I didn't look like Ariel. I think I looked more like a manatee, and I was like, oh my god. Crazy.
That's kind of that's exactly what but giants, like humongous. And I was like, no, that's what maybe we knew each other.
I feel like maybe we did, yeah.
And it's funny because I follow this like planet thing on Instagram, and they had posted maybe about 2 years ago or something about a very specific exoplanet that is just water. And I was like, that's it. Wow. That's where I was from. Where? Like, I can't remember the name now. I have to look it up again. Look it up now. But it's an exoplanet that is 100% all water.
That's amazing. So there's oxygen there. So like
there has to be.
We can like I guess inhabit that.
But
where
there's no land.
I always feel too like we always talk about ancient experience like Lemuria and Atlantis. I feel like again if time is not linear, and I do feel like these places like still exist in some degree, and
absolutely,
yeah. So I don't feel like it's like exploded and it's done. Like these civilizations are no longer.
They're just happening on another timeline.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm just thinking back because like that's what happens, and I know we're completely sidetracked here, but in terms of like past lives and past being like having I can't speak us being other beings, like not just being human. I noticed that a lot of times it shows up in our world where we don't even like the fact that you want to be in the sun but you can't. It's probably like you probably overdid it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that I want to swim but I can't.
Yeah.
And I can't eat fish. Like I even like if I'm around it, the smell just gets me anyway. But if I'm around fish and people are eating fish, it actually makes me nauseous.
Oh my God.
I can't see someone eating fish in front of me. I physically get sick.
Oh wow. Well, luckily I'm a vegan.
Yeah, but it's like I feel, and I remember
and I hate seaweed.
Okay.
I hate seaweed. I don't like eating seaweed at all.
It's something I think it's, and it's like I remember I had an ex-boyfriend who loved seafood. That was also not gonna last.
Oh my God.
That relationship was not gonna last, of course. But he was eating lobster in front of me, and I remember watching him.
Didn't he know?
He knew, but I mean, he was just like, I really want lobster. And I was like, okay, because lobster is so like, okay, whatever.
Anyway.
So we were on lobster. I'm on the border of breaking out. And he's like across from me, and I could smell it, and it's just doing its thing. And I'm just staring at him, and he's like ripping apart this lobster. Like, and I was like, this is not going to last because you're a horrible person. I don't know why. I mean, he wasn't that person, but the fact that he was like ripping apart the lobster, like watching him do that, I was like, my anger and my rage was getting more and more, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was just looking at him like, you horrible human. Look at you. Like you disgusting. I was just like, what am I thinking this? And that's the way he was like pulling the, I was like,
it's because you were just like horrifying to us.
I was so, and I was like, and he, I mean, of course, it became an argument because at the end he thought I was angry at him because he was eating seafood. And I was like, no, I don't know why, but I kind of hate you right now. And I don't know why. It was just like, and I'm like, oh, like I'm just like watching him dismember this lobster. And I remember just like feeling so, I was physically sick, but I also wanted to hurt him. I was like, okay, like it's probably, yeah, like my past self, like seeing my friends like
torn apart.
It's awful. It was interesting.
Yeah. I know we went kind of off topic, but it was segued because of the undines more than anything that we were talking about, like water beings. I mean, mermaids are also considered elementals. So yeah.
I feel like they are. And yeah, I mean, I really wish I can swim. Obviously, I'll have to do a lot more research into that and see exactly which past life I can heal that trauma with. Maybe it's not meant to be healed. I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to be. That's okay.
Not in this lifetime, anyway.
Yeah, I'll sit with it. It's okay. As long as I'm near the water, that's fine for me. That's all I need. Yeah.
So, yep. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to wrap up this episode, and please stay tuned for the next fairy installment. We'll have one more fairy one. We're not really sure yet what that's going to look like, but we'll let you all know.
Yeah, it's been fun deciphering and talking about our experiences as well.
Yeah. And if you have any questions about fairies or about working with them, please drop us a line on any of our platforms or go to our website, and we have a what do you call those? Like a when you can like put in a question or whatever, an email section, I guess, or whatever it's called. Sorry, sometimes I forget words.
I know me too. I'm like the thing, press on the thing that does the thing, and then it woo. I'm like, oh,
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. I get it.
The thing that where you can put your name and your email and put a question, that's what you can do on our website. You can totally ask us questions if you want, or if you have, specific things you want to know about them, like maybe we can talk about them on the next episode too.
Exactly. It'd be really good to have suggestions. And of course, contact us for readings as well. We both are psychic mediums, and we're definitely able to see all these things for ourselves, so we can help you with that too.
Yeah, especially if you're interested in your past lives, if you're open to hearing about your past lives for, being other beings than human, we both do those kinds of readings. So, feel free to book one of us.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
If you like this podcast, please remember to rate us and leave a review on whatever streaming service you are listening on, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, so more people can enjoy it.
We appreciate you very much. This is The Witch's Tea with Mallorin at Moonlight Divination.
And Violet at Violet the Green Witch and Fox and Bear Healing.
Remember, you are magic.
And life is weird.